So today what we're doing is we got grid here. This is day 3. We had a scheduled disconnect reconnect that they just disconnected the power, and what they're doing right now is they cut the feeds to the building and are pulling it back into the CT cabinet to rerun. There's a 500 kc metal wire that comes in from the service up there, and they're refeeding it to put in a 400 amp disconnect. So the power is completely out on the building right now, and it should be out until about 2 p.m. until grid comes back. But that's essentially what we need to do in order to do it safely and get the power back on. But we do need to have that disconnect in between a CT cabinet and their service, just because we're adding solar to it. So there needs to be a first form of disconnect on the outside of the building for the fire department in case anything happens. So more to come on that pretty early in the day here on day 3 of the install. So we're back here, day 3, just to kind of show you guys the progress that we made on the roof. The guys got here around 9 o'clock because, as you see, there's frost and condensation on the panels. So a lot of this was icy over here. So we got to kind of take a slow roll approach to this to make sure everybody's safe. But this is essentially what the project looks like. They're about halfway through, maybe a little more than halfway through with the installation of the panels. So they'll probably be up here full blast here once the rest of this ice kind of makes its way off the roof, and start with the stringing. So these boxes here is where all the strings from this array is going to come down. They're going to come into this box, these J boxes here, and then they're coming out of these boxes to come down where that punches in right next to it, where the inverters are on that interior wall, right next to the electrical room. So that's to come next. They're going to plan on getting the rest of the panels on in this area today, and then tomorrow that'll be all stringing, and we'll be on to the next project here Monday with some wrap up stuff with the electricians. Downstairs they got the disconnect reconnect going on right now. They should be pretty much right below me, and they got the wires pulled out there. They got the lift working nice and charged up, and ready to hang all those wires and stuff them through the conduits and get this project energized again, because again the power is out. Grid should be back sometime around 2 o'clock to turn the power back on and get the facility going again. So that's kind of an update where we're at right now. Okay, so we're up here in the electrical room. The power's out. Kind of step 2 to the disconnect reconnect is they pulled the feeds out here. You can see daylight. So they got the LB cover off. They were up on the left. They're gonna refeed the wires in here, so that and they're gonna land it back in. So they got that 400 amp disconnect tied in, and they're starting to pull the wires out to get them pushed through the conduit and then landed back in here so we can get the power back on. But that's essentially what the inside of the panel looks like, and then a couple of additional wires here that run to this sub panel pulled out. But that is essentially what the next steps look like. So right now they're working on hanging this 400 amp knife switch. They got the wires pulled back, ready to go in there. So once they get that thing hung and kind of in place, they can start to feed the wires down in there. And then we'll be probably about an hour away from calling grid to come back and energize the system again. These are their transformers up here. If you zoom in there, you can kind of see that they're disconnected from the rest of the line. So that's kind of the next steps on that front. So we're getting pretty close to getting this wrapped up. Now that we got all the wires fished through the conduit, had to kind of do it from the lift, you saw in the video. So next steps here is to get the rest of these wires landed, and then we can get grid to come back out here and finish the rest of the system. we just got grid to turn we got National Grid to turn the power back on here. So we're good to go. And we're energized. Our voltage readings were perfect across the board on each phase. So now we have power back to the building, and we can complete the rest of the project here. Tomorrow will be the rest of the DC home runs to the roof, and we'll tie everything together, and we'll get these inverters commissioned and fired up. So that's essentially how that works. Grid's out of here. They came at 8 o'clock this morning to turn the power off. 2 p.m. right on schedule to get those things turned back on. All transformers, all phases good to go. Everything on the up and up over here. So they're booming up the last little bit of the panels here. Kind of finish that out of the panel of the system right before they're ready to string. So coming along towards the end of the day on day 3. We got 11 of these panels going back to our office for another job, but the rest of the skid is going to be going up on the roof by the end of the day. And we're pretty much going to be paneled and ready for stringing.